I guess trying to stream in 4K just wasn't working. Anyway, it won't do it in 4K anyway. Most of these platforms are just 720. So this is a restart. Let's see if it's gonna actually stream it this time. So we're trying to stream to X, we're trying to stream to YouTube and to LinkedIn. We'll see if it comes through. Riverside was acting funny a little earlier, but it also could have been my internet. So apologies for that if you joined in that previous call. Let's see. So let's just make sure that we're actually getting some of this content in here. Let's see if I actually hear myself. So here, oh yeah, here I am. At least I can see myself now. It was so laggy before. Let's just check this here. One, two, test. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so I can hear myself on X. So that works. Okay, so let's check over here on YouTube and let's see if that works. And then let's check on LinkedIn as well. Let's go over here. Yeah, so this one looks like it's working. Also, well, is it? I don't know. Well, in any case, I'll just start. Yeah, yeah, here it is. Okay. Works on LinkedIn. And it looks like it's working on YouTube. Let's see. Yeah. All right. So what we're gonna do here is I'm just gonna shut all this off now live. Perfect. Perfect. All right. Excellent. So welcome. This live stream, we're gonna be talking about a few things that happened today in multiple calls with clients. So they're all interesting just because they are related to small businesses, things that can happen in a small business and that are relevant to people in small business, I guess. So it's it. We're talking about payments, integrations with different systems. We're talking about robocallers, which I'm getting a ton of, and we're talking about WhatsApp as well. So, welcome. This is the Web Talk Show, and this was actually an idea because I was about to set up some screenshots for the most recent Web Talk Show episode, and I was opening Riverside to get everything ready and get those screenshots, and then I got a call, and nothing happened on the call. And then and during the day, I just in general got a lot of calls, and recently I've been getting a lot of calls, and some just don't have anything, and some are robocallers like usual, and some are actually using some of these AI uh, agents for calls, which I mean, they're at least entertaining in some scenarios. So you sort of start telling which ones are those versus just like a press one to whatever. And you can build those, by the way. You can build your own. You can use it for outbound. You can use it for inbound. It's really useful, in my opinion, for inbound, especially because let's say you have a clinic, dental office, a whatever, a car shop, anything, and you want people to book appointments. So that you detail cars and you want people to book appointments. So yeah, they could go online, etc. But sometimes they call in, and if they call in, then you have to have staff that can take those calls, and so that can get expensive. And maybe they call at odd hours, and so it's not practical. So in that scenario, I feel that inbound AI agents are great because they will talk to people. They're pretty natural sounding. There's a ton of different voices and accents and just the speed variability of a lot of other things, and I can show you some if you want. But it's it's very interesting where we've gotten to with the technology because they work. They're fun to talk to in some cases, depending on how the prompt was generated. And so again, for inbound at the very least, I think it's really nice because I prefer personally to call someplace and just get that. And I know it's not a human, but I don't care. I can book an appointment very fast, or I can order something, or I can get support very quickly without having to wait for someone on the line. So a thousand times better to just get something or someone in this case, but something on the line and have that conversation because these AI agents can be used for anything. You could just dump your whole knowledge base. You could have it where I could ask like, oh, I'm trying to use this baby monitor. I'm not sure how I should change the language on it. I have no idea. And so maybe I just call in and this thing answers and it'll guide me. It'll say, oh, so turn it on, press menu, tap, tap, tap to the bottom, swipe right or whatever. And it'll give me the instructions. And I didn't have to wait for someone to get on the line. And so there's these wonderful companies out there that have fantastic support. So I mean, especially for the kid stuff like the Guardian bikes or like the Radio Flyer, they have fantastic support. You can call, somebody answers, they're very helpful. But not every company can have a huge staff on call with all the knowledge and have them all be happy and generous and helpful. That just isn't viable for a lot of small businesses, especially. So I think using these agents is a great idea. And I'm talking about this because we were discussing this with a client this morning. We were looking at what can be done and how these agents have been evolving. So take these tools like Vapi. If you've never heard of it, Vapi is a nice little tool that allows you as a whoever person, business owner, whatever you want, to generate your own voice AI agents. And so if you're curious, let me actually see if I can share my screen here. And for those that are just listening, apologize, but I'm just showing just the homepage of vapi.ai. So if I do screen share here, I'm gonna do this and let's hope that it works. All right. So you see this very nice little landing page, and you can where it says talk to Vapi, you can click it. There's a big button that says talk to Vapi. Give it a try, and you can actually start talking with it. And it's really interesting because it's like a conversation. You find yourself just talking to it, and it can give you the breadth of knowledge of different things, and it'll help you understand the platform, use cases, stuff like that, and it's really neat. But one can create an account and go in and just start creating things, which is very nice. So let me start sharing the other tab. And again, for those who are just listening, I'm just sharing sort of the dashboard. And so I'm going to open, like, this is just an empty account, but I want to show you what it looks like if you're doing something here. So let's see if it loads. Share this tab instead. So basically, you get this screen, and then you can say something like, I don't know, whatever. You can create an assistant, and you can say customer support specialist, create assistant, and his name is going to be Alex. And so here, hi there, this is Alex from Tech Solutions, customer support. How can I help you, right? You can have that sort of as a first message, and then you can have a system prompt for it. And the system prompt will say things like, hello, you're Alex, customer service assistant for Tech Solutions, blah, blah, blah. And you can tell what the personality is, the speech characteristics, the conversation flow, etc., and how to identify issues, troubleshooting. You can just have this big prompt and tell it how it's supposed to work. And it works. They're really nice. So I recommend, if you're curious, just go in. You, if you have the time, you might not even need to hire someone to build something for this. But of course, someone can help you. Like we can help you, but it's simple enough to get started if you want to just play with it. And so you go in, you tell it everything you want it to do, and you can even add files. So you can say, use these documents as your knowledge base so that it knows how to interact with your customers, with your visitors, or whoever. And so it's really nice. The voices are fantastic. You go to voice configuration, and there's you can use the Vapi voices. They have a bunch of them, and you can see it's a 22-year-old male with a deeper tone. It's Harry with a energetic, Spencer, Kylie, Savannah, Paige, right? And so you get a lot of options. You could use 11 Labs, which is a great company for voices, but there's also Cartesia, there's Element, there's Deepgram, there's a bunch of different choices or providers for those voices. So you can choose one and then you can even tweak them. And of course, if you get deep into it, you can go into something like 11 Labs and actually clone a voice, your voice or someone else's voice, and use that if that's what you want to do. So very practical for, again, for inbound calls. I think customer support, scheduling, that sort of thing is really nice. And you can just create a prompt and then you can add tools to it. And the tools are really nice because you can have it check your cal.com account or your Google Calendar, and it can check if there's availability, what slots are available, and then based on that, allow people to book appointment. Like actually book the appointment, or it could write to your Google Sheet. It can do many things. So it's great. That's sort of the initial version of some of these tools just have a one main prompt that's handling everything. But then there's also the workflows aspect, and the workflows are really nice because there are also templates, and workflows are relatively new in Vapi, but you can create a workflow and you can say, I want to do a lead qualification agent, right? And then call it whatever you want. And again, for those who are just listening, I'm just showing the screen of what a workflow, and it's just like a chart of steps. And within those steps, you can say, hey, this is Morgan from Growth Partners, and we help businesses improve their operational efficiency through custom software solutions. Do you have a minute to talk about blah, blah, blah? And so this looks like an outbound one, right? And so they can say they're too busy or they agree to chat. And so you start the conversation and you tell what steps to do. But the great thing is, all of these steps are sort of individual LLM steps in which you can choose a different model. So you're not tied to an OpenAI or an Anthropic or a Google. You can decide for one step I want to use Llama or Gemini, or in another step I want to use Claude or ChatGPT. And then in each step, it can also grab variables like you want the customer's name, email, phone number, and it can expand on that in the conversation. So it's very interesting that you can do things like these just by opening an account, and then you can start for free. You can just start testing it and click call, and you can see how it works. So it's really nice. It's very I don't know, I find it very interesting that we can do that sort of thing so easily, especially if you're a small business. And then the way it works, they bill you per like a per minute thing. It could be a few cents per minute, things like that. And the great thing specifically about Vapi is that it'll tell you based on your choices, the configuration that you chose, how much is going to be per minute. And so let's you choose a higher end model, then it'll show you how much you're paying for it. If it's a faster model, maybe a lower end model, or whatever, it'll show that change, and it'll also show how much latency each of these configurations introduce. The latency is just how long it takes, right, to get back to you. And so if you make it very fast, you'll see it's like talking with Vapi on the homepage. It feels really natural because it's very fast at answering. It's not like when you say something to the Robocaller and it just weird because it just takes a long time before it tells you something or it sort of understood. And so it's nice. So these are voice agents. There's many tools out there. You can use VoiceFlow as well, which if you're thinking of doing live chat on your website, for example, VoiceFlow is a great choice. And you can use VoiceFlow for live chat and also voice and also text and also some other things. So and I'll discuss a little bit more about that in a little bit. So yeah, that's what we were talking about this morning, and the possibilities of some of these and how we can implement them into businesses for scheduling, for customer support, and that sort of thing. So I'm just going to open a few things here so that I have visibility. And if you have any questions, please drop them in the chat. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have. And of course, if they decide to appear on Riverside. If they don't and I see it later, I'm sorry, but I will answer in the comments. So great. Then the second thing I want to talk about is payments. So payments, when you use multiple systems in your flow, like your e-commerce flow or any other type of business flow, there's the issue of how the data is moved around and where you get the data at the end and where's your source of truth and many other things. And we'll have a much better conversation about data and everything tomorrow on the podcast. But the one of the big things that we've seen is, let's say you have a WooCommerce store or Shopify or anything like that. Typically, you also have an accounting platform like QuickBooks or FreshBooks or whatever. And you typically want to be able to move information from point A to point B. So let's say you have your e-commerce platform and you want those payments to be generated as invoices or sales receipts on your accounting software. So the conversation we're having today, this morning, was how do we move transactions from something like WooCommerce to QuickBooks such that every time an order is placed, that order goes into QuickBooks automatically, and that way our customers don't have to go in and every month do an export and a bulk import and all that messy stuff. So there are many tools to do this. One very well known one in the space is called MyWorks, and they do a sync between WooCommerce and QuickBooks. And I've used it for many years with different customers, and it works for many scenarios. So if it's a regular store and it has the SKUs, and then the SKUs are also in QuickBooks, you can map them and it'll even show you or sync inventory between them, things like that. So it's really nice, especially if you're doing multi store setups. So it's good in that sense. However, some things won't necessarily work out of the box depending on how you have your store set up. So with my client today, what was happening was they need to have partial payments. So deposits, for example. So it's a custom built product, and so they need an upfront payment, and then the balance is paid later on. So what happens is WooCommerce does not support partial payments out of the box. It's either paid or it's not paid, basically. And so, yeah, you can use plugins to add deposits functionality, and there are some out there that work nicely, and they will give the customer the option to choose to pay in full upfront or to pay a deposit and then pay the balance later. And it handles it really nicely in the sense that it will show whatever that deposit amount is. Let's say it's 50%, and the person can pay with any supported payment method via Stripe or ACH, direct, whatever you want. And then it creates that sort of virtual order for that second payment or the balance, which is really nice as well because they can track it in their own account. They can go in, they can pay. It works. So the one we're using works. The problem is, since it's not a native feature, there's no way for a company like MyWorks to know about all plugins that exist. And so there's no way for them to consider the possibility that, oh, maybe the customer needs these partially paid payments to go over to QuickBooks, right? And so yes, they've integrated with some because somebody maybe has asked them for it and it made sense and there's a user base and whatever, and so the resources to be allocated makes sense. In some scenarios, it won't, and that's okay. And I hope they add. We've talked to them, and maybe they'll add support for the particular one we're using, and that would be swell. But I mean, there's quality control, there's testing, there's a lot of things involved for them to just add support for a third-party plugin that maybe no one else would use. And I'm sure most people, I mean, many other people will use it, but that's where you are. So you have to allocate resources in an intelligent way. So what are you left with? So our conversation this morning was, how can we automate the payments such that they can go to QuickBooks without having to modify MyWorks in this case? And maybe we still want some of the functionality that MyWorks is giving us, but we maybe just use the order to invoice thing, but we do not transfer the payments over. How do we do that? So there's multiple things you could do. And so we were exploring the different tools, and I've talked about some of these tools before, like make.com, N8N, Zapier. These automation tools allow you, again, as a business owner or a developer or anyone in the company, to connect different tools. So make.com, for example, you can connect it to Stripe, you can connect it directly to WooCommerce, you can connect it to QuickBooks, and then you can have things happen whenever there's a trigger or something in one place, then an action can happen in another place. So it's good. Now, there are differences between how some of these tools handle things, and that's the interesting part. It's figuring out which features or actions each of these different tools will have such that they match what you need done. And I wanted to talk about this because you might shy away from an automation if you don't try everything before knowing that it will actually work. And I'll explain what I mean. Let's say you decide, oh, maybe I want to use make.com. Because make.com is really nice. It has a lot of integrations and it has a lot of features and it's very easy to use. And so I might decide to go with it. And so I go in and I connect my WooCommerce and I connect my Stripe, and okay, perfect. I'm getting a new payment coming in. I can move it over to QuickBooks. I can see that I can generate a payment on QuickBooks, and I can also update invoices, and I can do a lot of things. But you then might run into the fact that there's no way, or not a visibly easy way, to create a payment on QuickBooks that is linked to an existing invoice, which does not make sense. But anyway, that's not there. And so you might think, oh, then we cannot automate it this way. We'll have to go custom code, which is going to be expensive and it's going to take time, etc., etc. So some people might just at that point say, oh, if make.com doesn't have it, nobody else will. I mean, it's just a QuickBooks thing. It won't work. That's it. We're not going to go that route. And you might be wrong. And so that's why I wanted to bring this up, because in our exploration today, we actually started testing in different tools. And that, again, that's it. It's worth it, in my opinion, while you're scoping a project, while you're scoping something with a client, or even if you are the client and someone is telling you, hey, we're going to use this tool, or we don't know if this tool will work. Well, during the scoping process, you are allowed to just go and create a free account on each of these services and just see which actions are there, because a lot of it's not documented. And so if you do that, then you might be surprised with what you learn. In this case, the what we learned was that make.com did not have that particular thing that we needed, but Zapier did. And sometimes we think make.com is better than Zapier because it's so visual and it's newer, but there are some things that it doesn't do, and that's understandable as well. So what we learned was that Zapier does have the create a payment action conditionally adding it to an invoice. And that's part of the step. And so it's great. So we're going to use Zapier. So this is just to tell you that sometimes it's worth it to go in and just do a quick test of what each tool can do before doing the full thing, or before scoping out the full thing, because you might learn that it's better to use one tool versus another, and you're going to end up saving a little more time down the road. So that's the second conversation that we had today. So a few different calls this morning. And now the third conversation is all around WhatsApp. And this one is, I don't know why it works this way. There might be a technical limitation, or it might be something to do with the encryption. I'm not really sure why this is set up this way, but as many of you know, you can use WhatsApp Business to have a WhatsApp phone number that customers can interact with. And you can talk to them via WhatsApp, and you can send out messages, and you can have groups and all that good stuff. And WhatsApp is widely used around the world, maybe not as much in the US, but in many countries it's extremely used, and more, even more than text messaging is. And so WhatsApp becomes an interesting topic in countries like India, where this particular client is based, and they need to be able to communicate with their customers via the WhatsApp platform, but also via the system, and be able to, if they start a conversation on their website, move that conversation over to WhatsApp, for example, or if they ask for support, be able to continue that conversation. So we were talking about voice agents at the beginning, and there's also text agents like VoiceFlow, Chat, or Intercom, or ManyChat, or many other, livechat.com. There's many platforms for this, and they're all really good for live chat. And then some of them have very good bulk messaging, where you want to send a broadcast to a lot of people. Well, some of them support WhatsApp. And the issue with WhatsApp, and something, if you're a business owner, that you should know if you're planning on implementing WhatsApp, is that WhatsApp has very specific rules. Meta has very specific rules for WhatsApp to sort of keep the ecosystem clean. And that is that there's only a 24-hour window for starting like just a random conversation with someone. So if someone reaches out to you, you can text back, you can talk to them from a business integration. But if 24 hours elapse, then you can no longer continue that conversation. It's over. You can't send any more messages to that person. It's not like, oh, they're gonna mark me as spam. No, you just can't. The platform won't let you. And so the only way you can send those messages is if you use an approved templated message. So you can create these templated messages in Meta and they get approved. And once they get approved, you can use those to send a message to someone outside that window. So it gets interesting because you might say that it's oh okay so I'll connect it to my website and we'll do the interaction. So the problem is if you connect it to one tool, it's sort of connected to that tool and that's it. So it becomes a big issue because maybe you have it on a phone and you want to interact with them and you don't have the problem because it's real like you're actually just chatting with them if you have it on a phone. But as soon as you connect it to an application, then all that sort of goes out the window and now you have to be within that 24-hour period. So that's one thing. And the other thing is you can no longer communicate with them via the phone. And so if you connect it to your website, to your CRM or whatever, if your CRM does not support live interactions, then it will only be able to send out those messages, but you won't be able to communicate with that person if they reply. That's something very important that a lot of people don't know. The way the platform is set up, it's sort of tied to that account, and the API requests and everything just go through it. And this might be a little technical, but that's what happens. And so if you plan on using WhatsApp within your business messaging in an automated fashion or based on workflows or triggers, then it's important to consider the point where you actually connect WhatsApp. So let's say you use VoiceFlow for all your automations and AI agents and all that good stuff. Well, when you actually integrate with WhatsApp, yes, you could create your own code-based integration, but you're going to lose access to actually communicating with them manually. So maybe it might be a better idea to use something like Intercom, or even now we learned that Soho CRM, if you're using Soho CRM software, they have the messaging capability as well, ManyChat as well. So there are some of these platforms that have live conversation features with WhatsApp. So if you connect your business WhatsApp to that, then you can have a conversation with people there, but then you can use that connected to VoiceFlow or whatever other agent tool you're using to create those triggers, those flows, and other things. So it's just there's so many tools out there nowadays, and everything looks so simple to connect. We just sometimes we learn that there are some tools, some platforms that have very specific rules, and we just have to be careful um, not to lose out on very important features like being able to get back to a customer like you're used to on the phone, just because you decided to use an integration from your website. So that's all I have for you today. I wanted to talk about those three things. If you have any ideas on conversation topics that you need answered, questions you need answered, I'll be happy to bring them up on another episode. And it was a pleasure talking with everyone today, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks.